Hello friends, welcome to the session, and today we'll be discussing the transport across membrane. This is our session where we'll be discussing the basic concepts of transport across membrane, and this session is specially designed in our website. So you can log on to the website of www.vijayaguptaphysiology.com and you can get the session live. What are the things we are going to discuss? In today's session, we'll be first trying to understand what is the structure of the cell membrane, how it plays a very important role in governing the movement of the substances. See, transport across membrane means what? Transport across membrane means the cell is surrounded by a cell membrane. So the cell gives out certain things which are not required or just secretes certain things. And the cell also accepts or needs certain nutrients like oxygen, glucose, certain gases, and also the ions or sodium and other ions. So how does the cell incorporates or the cell takes in those things, and if the cell wants to give out certain metabolic waste like carbon dioxide or certain hydrogen ions, how does the cell helps, how does the membrane plays a role in removing or in taking in these substances from ECF to ICF, that is from outside the cell to inside the cell or from inside the cell to outside the cell. So first thing we will be trying to understand is the structure of the cell membrane. What are the factors which are very important in understanding transport across membrane with respect to cell membrane? So understanding cell membrane becomes very important, and on that basis we will be understanding other things. So I hope I am audible and visible to everyone here. Yes, just let me check the settings. Great. So, that's great. Things are going fine. Yes. So let us first try to understand the structure of the cell membrane. Remember, cell membrane is typically a structure which protects the cell from a water environment, that is hydrophilic environment. The environment around the cell is mostly water in nature. So the cell has to survive in this environment. I remember a very beautiful story from one of my professors. He said that the life originated in water. The life has originated in water, first life form. Why? It's because the water is a universal solvent. Anything and everything the cell needs or a life needs can be made available through water. Very good. So the life has to start from water environment. Very good. But the life has also protect itself for the water, because the water is going to be important for us. But the problem is the water itself is such a dangerous, you can say, entity that the water, it can dissolve the cell also. So the cell has to survive in water, has to take all the nutrition from the water, but at the same time the cell has to protect itself from the dissolving capacity of the water, because the water can dissolve the cell itself. So the cell has developed a structure in which the cell will have a hydrophilic environment also, that is hydrophilic composition and a hydrophobic composition. The hydrophilic composition will help the cell to remain in touch with water, and the hydrophobic composition will help the cell to protect itself from the harmful effect of water. That's a very interesting part. You remain in water, but at the same time you protect yourself from the harmful effects of water. So let us look at this molecule, this astonishing molecule which gives the cell this specific ability, and this is the phospholipid. Remember, the molecule is phospholipid. So here I am sharing my screen. I hope my screen is visible to everyone here, and if I can see the chat box is visible to everyone here. Yes. So you can see the phospholipid molecule is a molecule which provides the cell with this ability. The phospholipid molecule consists of a phosphate moiety which is hydrophilic in nature. The phosphate moiety which is hydrophilic in nature. So this phosphate moiety will help the environment, the water, to come near to the cell membrane. So water can remain near to this phosphate moiety. But suppose if the water tries to cross this phosphate moiety, what happens? We have the hydrophilic chains, lipid chains. These hydrophobic chains or these lipid chains, they repulse water. They are hydrophobic in nature. So if water can stay in the phosphate moiety area, can remain near the hydrophilic areas, but the moment water tries to cross this area, the lipid chains in this inner structure, they oppose the water movement, and the water cannot move through this hydrophobic environment. So the cell is developed a very beautiful thing. From outside, the cell will show, oh, I am water loving. So all the water molecules can gather around the cell membrane. That's very nice. But at the same time, if the water molecules try to cross the cell membrane, no, they are not allowed to cross the cell membrane. So from outside it shows hydrophilic, and from inside it is hydrophobic. Same thing goes for the inner side also. On the inner environment also, we have same arrangement but on the opposite direction. Like we have a hydrophilic and then hydrophobic. So from the inner side also, the cell is hydrophilic, and the center part of the membrane again hydrophobic. In the same way, like the inner cytoplasmic area, this is ECF area, extracellular fluid area, this is ICF area. So just a second. Yes. So from the outside, the cell shows hydrophilic. From the cytoplasmic side, the cell shows hydrophilic. Okay. From the outside, the cell shows hydrophilic. From the inside also, the cell shows hydrophilic. But the center part of the membrane shows hydrophobic area. From the center part of the membrane shows hydrophobic area. And how? How does it help? In this way, the cell can show that from the both sides, the cell is water loving. From ECF and ICF side, from the ECF end and from the ICF end, the cell very well shows that it is water loving, the membrane. But the center part is purely hydrophobic. So if you arrange all the molecules in this manner, what do we have? We have a lipid bilayer structure. Lipid bilayer structure. So this membrane is lipid bilayer because we have one layer of lipid and another layer of lipid, phospholipids. So in this way we have a lipid bilayer structure of the phospholipid molecules. And very interesting part here is this structure, these phospholipids, they are not static at this place. They can just move around in their vicinity. They can move around their vicinity, no problem. It's like a fluid nature. Yeah, they are very much fluid in nature, so they can move around within their vicinity. It's called as fluid mosaic model. Fluid mosaic model. I remember a very interesting example regarding this lipid bilayer. So we have two layers. Both the side, from the outer side it is hydrophilic, center part it is hydrophobic. And the molecules, they don't stay at that place. They can just keep on moving around. How does it help? It helps the cell to maintain dynamicity. Let me give an example here. Suppose if you see, there are certain window pans in church. If you have been to church, there are very window pans. We have very small glass pieces, and those glass pieces, colored glass pieces, they have been arranged in those window pans to make a beautiful design. Now those small glass pieces, they are colorful glass pieces, they are static. They don't move around, and you can see the structure, you can see the painting. But just imagine those glass pieces can move all around that window frame. It becomes a fluid mosaic. So this is the beautiful part of it, because apart from phospholipids, we have proteins. So the cell should have a dynamic structure. And how does it arrange? This is the way we have proteins in this cell membrane. Apart from phospholipids, we have proteins. Why? because anything which is water loving cannot move through the lipid bilayer. It has to go through certain special structure which are called as protein, molecules of protein transporters. So we have channels, we have transporters through which water loving substances can move. For example, sodium ion. Sodium is a ion which is water soluble. So water soluble substances will move across these protein molecules, which are called as integral proteins, and the cell membrane also have certain receptors which can receive the signal called as peripheral proteins. So we have integral proteins. I repeat, this is your integral protein and this becomes your peripheral proteins. Peripheral proteins, they help in receiving the signal, whereas integral proteins, they help in transportation or attachment of the cell membrane from one cell to another. Let us try to understand. Once we are done with the membrane, we know now that membrane is a lipid bilayer in which we have hydrophobic, hydrophobic tails. Okay, so anything which is water soluble can stay in the periphery, but it cannot cross the membrane directly. Anything which is in the periphery can stay, water soluble substance can stay, but they cannot cross the lipid bilayer directly because of this presence of this hydrophobic compartment or hydrophobic central layer. The water loving or water substances can only move through the channel proteins or transport proteins. They can allow the water soluble substances. Okay, whereas these, they act as a receptor. The peripheral proteins, they act as a receptor. So now let us have a general idea about which substance can move through which part of the cell membrane. Substances which are lipid soluble. The substances which are lipid soluble, like oxygen or carbon dioxide. Gases are lipid soluble. Oxygen and carbon dioxide, gases, they are lipid soluble. They can move directly via lipid bilayer. Oxygen can go from outside to inside via lipid bilayer. Similarly, carbon dioxide can go from inside to outside, similarly via lipid bilayer. Carbon dioxide can go from inside to outside via lipid bilayer. They can cross lipid bilayer directly because they are lipid soluble. So lipid soluble substances can cross the membrane or lipid bilayer directly. They don't have any restrictions. Like, say example, if me as a human being wants to enter a room, I can enter via doors. I cannot enter via walls because I am not wall soluble. I have to need a door or a window, something like that, or a channel to enter the room. But a ghost, a simple funny example, a ghost can enter the room via walls, via ceiling, via floor, because ghosts are sort of wall soluble. So substances which are lipid soluble, they can move across the membrane from any point. Whereas the substances which are water soluble, say sodium ion, if I say sodium ion, and if sodium ion appears over here, sodium ion cannot cross the lipid bilayer, so it has to go through a specific channel across the membrane. Whereas if we have a potassium, then potassium will require a channel through which the potassium ion can move across the lipid bilayer. So potassium will require a channel, sodium will require a channel, but oxygen and carbon dioxide will not need a channel for its movement. So please remember, very simple sentence, substances which are lipid soluble, the substances which are hydrophobic type of nature, like they are not dissolved in water, they can dissolve in the liquid very easily. They can cross lipid bilayer. Oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, helium, alcohol, certain gases, they can cross lipid bilayer directly. Whereas the substances which are water soluble, which have charge on them, look here, we have charge, sodium, potassium, calcium, these molecules have charge on them, ions, they cannot cross lipid bilayer. They have to go through channels or pores only. In fact, water also goes through certain channel called as aquaporins. I hope we are clear to this point. Good. Let me see if we can have a chat box with us so that I can see your interactions. Okay. Yes. So we have been live and I can see, yeah, the things are going fine. But if just we can have the chat box activation with us. Yes, that's great. So we have the chat box. You all can reply me on the chat box over here. Yes. Great. So now, if you can see, a water soluble substance has to go through, a water soluble substance will have to go through the lipid bilayer. Just a second. A water soluble substance will have to go through the lipid bilayer structure. Yes. A water soluble substance, how does it go through the cell membrane? So we'll just look over here. You can see oxygen goes to lipid bilayer, carbon dioxide goes to lipid bilayer, but sodium will go through channel proteins. Sodium will go through channel proteins. I'll just repeat the whole structure once again. Let me just erase the unnecessary things over here. Yes. So if you see, we have sodium ion, and sodium ion approaches. If the sodium ion, something like that. Suppose just imagine if the sodium ion approaches near the lipid bilayer, then it won't be able to cross the lipid bilayer. No, it can't. So it will go through the channel protein called as sodium channel, and in this way it can enter through from ECF to SCF. So please remember, the substances which are water soluble, will need some special arrangement like channels or transporters to move across the membrane. But the substances which are, oh, just a second, I am quite lagging behind here. Yes. Good. Yes. So the substance have two types of movement, either moving through lipid bilayer or either they can move through channel proteins. Now, which substance will move in which direction? There are two types of transportation process, a passive and an active. Now before going to that, passive and active, remember, we do have a very confusion that which substance or which movement should be put in passive or which should be moved in active. Why? Remember two important things. A passive transport, the substance always moves. In passive transport, the substance always moves from higher concentration to lower concentration. In passive transport, the substance always moves from higher concentration to lower concentration, whereas in active transport, remember, the substance always moves from lower concentration to higher. So to have an idea about which is passive and which is active, the very first thing which I always ask to you, for everybody to remember is, first have a very clear-cut idea about which substance is more on which side of the cell. Which substance is more on which side of the cell or the compartment. So if it is moving from higher to lower, you can call it as passive. It is moving from lower to higher, you can call it as active. So I have prepared two compartments, ECF and ICF over here. ECF is extracellular fluid outside the cell. ICF, intracellular fluid inside the cell. Once we have a very clear-cut idea about which substance is more on which side of the membrane, this being our cell membrane. So which substance is more on which side of the membrane, then we can very well understand which type of movement will be a passive or active. Okay, it will be a passive movement or a active movement. Let us say sodium. Sodium is more on which side of the cell? Yes, remember sodium is more in higher quantities, in more concentration in ECF. So sodium is more in the ECF and less in the ICF. So if I can just imagine, if sodium is moving, I repeat, if I can see that sodium is moving from ECF to ICF, sodium is moving from ECF to ICF, it will be a passive transport, isn't it? So it is moving from higher concentration to lower concentration. But if I find a transporter which will move the sodium, from ICF to ECF, then I will be of opinion that sodium is moving against the gradient and it will be an active transport. So to have a very clear-cut idea, it's going to be so important. If you know the substance is more in which side of the cell, the substance is more in which side of the cell, then we'll be in the best position. To understand that the substance is moving passively or the substance is moving actively. Okay. If the substance is moving from higher concentration to lower concentration, I'll just hide it once again. From higher concentration to lower concentration, the sodium moving from ECF to ICF, it's a passive transport. If the sodium is moving from lower to higher, from ICF to ECF, it will be an active transport. Let us list all the substances. Today. Sodium is more outside the cell. Potassium is more inside the cell. So if potassium is moving from ECF to ICF, if I repeat, if potassium moving from ICF to ECF, it would be a higher to lower passive transport. And if potassium is moving from ECF to ICF, it will be lower to higher, it will be an active transport. So this becomes an active, this becomes a passive. I'll write here, from passive transport is what? A passive transport is always from higher concentration to lower concentration. Whereas an active transport, a substance is moving from lower concentration to higher concentration. Okay. You don't have to remember the arrows, you have to remember low to high or high to low. If sodium is moving from higher to lower, it is passive. If sodium is moving from low to higher, it is active. Let me check if I am online properly for everyone here. Yes, that's it. Things are going fine. Yes. Great. So, let us list down other substances. Sodium more in ECF, potassium more in the ICF. Chlorine is more on which side of the cell? Chlorine is more in the ECF. So chlorine, if it's moving from ECF to ICF, it is passive, and chlorine moving from ICF to ECF, it is active. Calcium ion, calcium is again more in the ECF. So if calcium is moving from outside to inside, that is from ECF to ICF, it is passive transport. But if the calcium is moving from ICF to ECF, that is from inside the cell to outside the cell, it is active transport. Magnesium, can you tell me magnesium? Magnesium is more inside the cell. Okay, so we have sodium, we have potassium, we have chlorine, we have calcium, we have magnesium. You will have to remember this distribution. This distribution is a very base of, or you can say the very strong base of your further understanding, because the substance which are moving in which direction is going to be a very important information for you regarding all the systemic physiology. Let us look for other substances also. Oxygen. What do you think oxygen is more in which side of the cell? Outside or inside? Oxygen is more outside, because oxygen diffuses from ECF to ICF, and CO2 is more inside, because CO2 is given out of the cell via lipid bilayer. Remember, in lipid bilayer, the substance always diffuse. In lipid bilayer, the substance always diffuse. It can't be active transport. It is always going to be a simple or passive transport. Okay. Glucose. What do you think about glucose? Glucose is again more outside the cell. We are going to understand the various modes of transportation over here. Okay, glucose is more outside the cell. And what about the bicarbonate and hydrogen ions? Remember, bicarbonate HCO3 is more outside the cell and hydrogen ion is more inside the cell. Because cell is a metabolically active entity, so it has a metabolic active process going on. So as a waste product, it produces carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions. Yes. So these are the things which are very, very important as far as transport across membrane is concerned. Let us try to have now a overall representation of what we have learned. This is what I have prepared for your understanding. If you look this as a passive transport, I will just draw with the black color a passive transport or a passive movement. Then a passive transport of sodium will be from outside to inside. Okay, a passive transport will be from outside to inside. This is a passive transport. Potassium passive transport, inside to outside. Chlorine passive transport, outside to inside. Calcium passive transport, outside to inside. Magnesium, inside to outside. Oxygen, outside to inside. Carbon dioxide, inside to outside. Bicarbonate, outside to inside, and hydrogen ion from inside to outside. These are passive transport. They are all moving from higher concentration to lower concentration. They are all moving from higher concentration to lower concentration. Okay, so this gives you a very beautiful, this chart is going to be the first requirement for your understanding that a substance is moving from higher concentration to lower concentration is a passive transport. You can see the direction depends upon from higher to lower in passive transport. Now if I have to redraw this with the active transport, then I would go something like this. Sodium, lower to higher, active transport. Potassium, lower to higher, active transport. Look at the arrow direction. They are going toward the direction where they are more, from lower to higher. Okay. This indicates, the initials indicates the substance which are more in which side of the cell. So if the substance is moving from lower to higher, see, sodium is already more outside and we are causing more sodium to move out from ICF to ECF, it is active transport. Potassium is already more inside and if you are causing more potassium to move inside, it is active transport. So remember, active will be in red color for this slide. Active will be red color. Chlorine if it is moving from ICF to ECF, active transport. Calcium if it is moving from ICF to ECF, it is active transport. Magnesium if it is moving from ECF to ICF, it is active transport. Okay, please remember, oxygen, carbon dioxide, no, we can't take them into category right now because they are just moving or diffusing through lipid bilayer. For active transportation, we require some special arrangement, protein transporters. Let us look at for bicarbonate. For bicarbonate, if it is bicarbonate moving from ICF to ETS, ECF it is active. If hydrogen is moving from ECF to ICF, it is active. For glucose, it is from ICF to ECF, again it becomes a active transport. So glucose is moving generally from outside to inside. In very rare situation, it is moving from inside the cell to outside the cell. We'll see this example. Glucose is one of the very interesting one to remember. Yes. So I hope we are clear to this point. Yes. Now let us look at the differentiation, or you can say the overall flow chart of the transport across membrane. How do we divide and subdivide the transport process? Okay, so if you look here, sorry, just a second. Yes, we will divide transport process membrane on the basis of passive and active. Okay, so if we look at the transport across cell membrane, we have two very principal type of transport process, passive transport and then active transport. A passive transport and a active transport. Passive transport, remember three interesting features, 3 points. Anything you find common with these 3 features, it is a passive transport. Anything which is common with these 3 features, it is a passive transport. Like, substance always moves from higher concentration to lower concentration. If anywhere you find that the substance is moving from higher concentration to lower concentration, it is passive transport. Then, second one, the substance for passive transportation never requires any energy. Never. No energy is required. No energy is used. Energy in terms of body. In body we call energy as the use of ATP. So ATP is not used by this transport process. No energy is required. It is free of cost. How? Let me just give an example. Suppose if you have a bucket full of water, and you want to take that water downstairs. You don't carry it. You can just put a pipe and you can just put the water in that pipe and the water will flow down from higher to lower. No energy is consumed. Okay. So that's how the passive transport works. Substance works from higher to lower concentration and no energy will be required for this transport process. No energy is required. And which are the words which you should look for? You can look at the words as diffusion, okay, diffusion or moving through liquid by layer. If you come across these things, then you can say yes, the substance is moving passively, moving through liquid by layer. Passive transport is of 2 types. Passive transport is primarily of 2 types. A simple diffusion. We are going to discuss this in detail. A simple diffusion and a facilitated diffusion. So we have 2 types of passive transport, a simple diffusion and a facilitated diffusion. And in active transport, coming back to active transport, features. What are the important features? Again, there are 3 important features in active transport. 3 important features. Number 1, the substance always moves from lower concentration, remember lower concentration, to, or you can say higher concentration. If the substance is moving from lower concentration to higher concentration, then it is an active transport. Okay, so if sodium is moving from inside the cell to outside the cell, it is active transport. If potassium is moving from outside the cell to inside the cell, it is active transport. Okay, I hope we are making it very clear. Substance moving from higher to lower, passive transport. Substance moving from lower to higher, active transport. Okay, and you have to remember this distribution. You have to remember. Please remember this is the lifesaver for your all queries, because you need to know the distribution of each ion across the cell membrane, each ion and these molecules. These are some of the very essential molecules and ions which you will be needing for your studies. Okay. Next, in passive transport, you see no energy was required, but here, yes, energy is required. Energy is required for transport process. Energy is required for transport process. Say for example, again bucket wala. Suppose if you have to carry the water from ground floor to the 3rd floor, from ground floor to your flat, which is quite at the 3rd story or 3rd floor, then now you don't have the option. You can't throw it and it will reach to the 3rd floor. You have to carry the bucket in your hand. You have to use your energy and carry it all the way from ground floor to the 3rd floor. So from lower to higher, you are going to require energy. From higher to lower, you don't need to have to require energy. You just push it through and it will move. The words, action words, the words which will give the hint that this substance is actually transported, they are pump, co-transport, or counter transport. If you come across this word, then it is an active transport. Of course, we are going to look into details, but just to have an idea that which things should give an idea. If the substance is moving through lipid bilayer, then obviously it's a passive transport. If I use the word that substance is pumped across the cell membrane, I will give a hint that yes, it's an active transport. If I get a sentence like, oh, substance is co-transported, like sodium glucose co-transporter. If I come across this word, I should get a hint that it's an active transport, not a passive transport. Okay, but if I get a word that sodium calcium exchanger or sodium calcium co-transporter, I should have a hint that it's an active transport. But if I have the word like sodium is diffusing, then it's a passive transport. Okay, and there are two types of active transport again, just like passive transport. Active transport is also two types: primary active transport, and a secondary active transport. Secondary active transport. So we have a primary active transport and we have a secondary active transport. Okay. So I hope we are clear. Let us just revise what we have done so far. You see, we have tried to understand the structure of the cell membrane, proteins, the phosphate moiety which is hydrophilic, the lipid chains are hydrophobic, and these molecules are arranged as one opposed to each other. So we have lipid bilayer structure in which the outer side, or you can say the sandwich pattern where the breads and we have vegetables. So the outside is hydrophilic and the center portion of the membrane is hydrophobic. So the whole structure of the membrane is a lipid bilayer. Since the molecules can move around, it is fluid mosaic model. Apart from lipid bilayer, lipid molecules, phospholipids, we have protein molecules. Some protein molecules are through and through, called as integral proteins. Some are in the surfaces, called as peripheral proteins. The integral proteins play a very wide role. They have action in transportation process. They play a role in the attachment of cell to cell. They play a role in signal transduction and many other things. Peripheral proteins, they also act as a receptor. If you look at the structure, it's a simplified one. The outside layers is hydrophilic and the center black one is the hydrophobic nature. Only substances which are lipid soluble, they can move across the membrane. The substances which are not lipid soluble, they cannot move across the lipid bilayer. So the lipid soluble substances can move like this, but the water soluble substances will be moving through the channel proteins. Okay, so we can have two types of movement, through lipid bilayer or through channel proteins, or the proteins in the membrane. Substances which are distributed across the cell membrane. This is the distribution of the substance across the cell membrane: sodium, potassium, chlorine, calcium, magnesium, oxygen, carbon dioxide, bicarbonate, hydrogen and glucose ions. We will have to remember these things because in future when I say that bicarbonate is moving in this direction, you should have an idea that oh, it's passive or active. If sodium is moving from here to here, should have an idea of what I am talking about. We have classified transport process into categories of passive and an active. A passive transport is from higher to lower concentration. No energy is required. The words which are commonly used are diffusion or movement through lipid bilayer. Active transport, substance is moving from lower to higher. Energy is required, ATP or you can say potential energy. And the words which may give you the hint here is pump or co-transporters or counter-transporters. Passive transport is of two types: simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion. And active transport is of two types: a primary active transport and a secondary active transport. Let us have some idea about passive transport in today's session, and then the remaining will continue in tomorrow's session. See, passive transport, if you look here, oh, just a second. Yes. So if you look at the passive transport, the passive transport is of two types. Number one, simple diffusion. Now, what do you mean by simple diffusion? I remember a very simple statement for this. Substance is moving on its own. Substance is moving on its own. Like if you come to the college from station, if you come by walking, you get on at a station and you come to college by walking, it's simple diffusion. The substance is moving on its own. Whereas in facilitated diffusion, the substance is transported by a transport proteins. Substance is transported by a transport proteins. So a simple diffusion, substance is moving on its own, and a facilitated diffusion, the substance is transported by a carrier protein. It is transported by a carrier proteins. Large molecules, to be more precise, large molecules like glucose, it has to move. Glucose cannot move through lipid barrier or through channel. For larger proteins, we require transport or carrier proteins. Okay, we will go into details of each of these. Simple diffusion. Let us first look at the simple diffusion here. In simple diffusion, remember, if we have a lipid barrier, okay, and we have a transport protein, or you can say a channel, this is called as a channel. If the substance is moving, I repeat, anything which is moving on its own, like oxygen, carbon dioxide, they are moving on their own, or through channel. If you have a channel protein like sodium channel, potassium channel, and if the substance is moving through these channel proteins on its own, they are passive transport, simple diffusion. Nobody is carrying them, they are just coming to the membrane and they are moving through the membrane. They are moving through the membrane very easily. Oxygen and carbon dioxide, they are moving through the membrane via lipid barrier because they are lipid soluble. Sodium, potassium, calcium, chlorine, they are moving through channel proteins, so they are also moving through the membrane via channel proteins. Nobody is carrying them, they are simple diffusion, substance is moving on its own. Okay, few more details about the simple diffusion. The channel proteins, if you look at the channel proteins are of various types. This gives the very specific nature to the membrane. We have sodium channel, which is specific for sodium ion. We have potassium channel, specific for potassium ion. We have chlorine, which is specific for chlorine ion. We have calcium channels, which are specific for calcium ions. So the channels are very specific for the ions which they transport. Some channels are also non-specific, means they can transport all the cations. Some channels are common for sodium, potassium and calcium. Some channels are common for chlorine and bicarbonate. So we have variety of channels. But thing is, substance is moving through the channels on its own. Many times the channels are also guarded by the gates. There are gates. So if the gate is closed, the substance cannot move. The gate is open, substance can move. So we have channel proteins and the channels have gates, and if the gate is open, substance can move. If the gate is closed, the substance cannot move. Depending upon this, there are four types of gates. Now I would call it as a shopping in a mall. When you go for a shopping, you have variety of choices, like you take a trouser and then you take a shirt and then you combine and then you mismatch and all those things. So we have permutation combinations, like suppose if we have a gated channels, then there can be four types of gated channels. Number one, a mechanically gated channel means what? See, membrane will have a channel, say a sodium channel, and the sodium channel, that sodium channel will have a gate. We'll have a sodium channel. Okay, we have a sodium channel in the membrane, and that channel will have a gate. And this gate will only open when there will be a mechanical stimulus like touch. So this becomes a mechanically gated sodium channels. So I write an example over here. Example, this will be a mechanically gated sodium channel. So this channel will allow sodium ion, but when there will be a touch, pressure, stretching, itching, they are all mechanical stimulus. So mechanically gated sodium channel. In fact, in your ear cochlea, inner cilia, and the endocochlear cells, they have cilia, and the cilia, they move to and fro, and because of their movement of the cilia, they have channels which are opening, and those channels are potassium channels. And which channels? Potassium channels, which type? Mechanically gated, because their movement will open the potassium channel. So mechanically gated channels. We have various examples. We have mechanically gated sodium channel, mechanically gated calcium channel, mechanically gated potassium channel, and so on. Next category is voltage gated channels. We have voltage gated channels, the channels which open when there is a voltage change. For example, the cell membrane and the cell has a potential difference called as resting membrane potential and action potential. So if there are electrical changes, like nerve gives an impulse to the muscles, the impulse coming from the nerve to the muscles is electrical in nature. That electrical impulse, it excites or it opens voltage gated channels. So the channel will open, but when there will be a voltage change. There will be a voltage change will open the gate of the channel, and that becomes a voltage gated channel. Again, we have voltage gated sodium channel, we have a voltage gated potassium channel, and we have voltage gated calcium channels also. So there can be various types of channels. Look at the varieties. First we have channel specific for ions. Now we have channel specific for ion also, and the channel specific for the gating also. So there are huge varieties, like shopping in a mall, as I said. Okay, that's what happens here. Number 3, ligand gated channels. Ligand gated channels. The channels which have gates, but the gates will open when there will be a chemical stimuli like smell, taste, or you can say neurotransmitters, hormones. They open the chemically or ligand gated channels. Let me write down the examples for your references everywhere. Here we write down the example of touch, pressure, stretching are mechanically gated channels involved. Voltage gated channels, action potential is a voltage gated channel behavior. Ligand gated channel, taste, smell are chemically gated channels. So we have a ligand gated sodium channel, we have ligand gated potassium channels. In fact, we have neurotransmitters also as a chemicals, like we say acetylcholine gated sodium channels, glutamate gated channels, GABA, glutamate, acetylcholine, adrenaline are some of the channels, neurotransmitters can also open the channels. Last but not the least, 4th one, time gated channels. We also have time gated channels. Example, pacemaker cells, heart rate, means the channels open for a specific time and then they close for a specific time. So the channel open and close for a specific time. The gates are specific for time. Example, pacemaker cells. So we have varieties of channels with respect to time or gating behavior. So this is all what we have discussed today about simple diffusion. There are a few more things to discuss, but today I have planned for this much of discussion. I hope you enjoyed the session. Do let me know your feedback. I'll be happy to teach you more. And that's all for now. See you all. Bye bye. Have a nice day. I'll be teaching more things like facility diffusion and also primary and secondary to transport. So thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice day.